Welcome to Vermont Voices. I'm Sharice Madigan, and today we're joined by Representative Linda Sullivan. Representative Sullivan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.
Could you start by telling me a little bit about yourself?
I can. That's probably an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
I come with a business background. I am a CPA licensed in several states. I do public auditing and forensic work. So I'm an expert witness on many cases.
Wow.
I also have developed businesses. I help my clients with exit strategies, and I help them in developing their businesses. I represent clients with the IRS and pretty much do more attestation functions, which is auditing functions, than traditional accounting and more business development.
That's great. And this has been your first year in the legislature. What made you want to run in the first place?
So based on where my career was at right now, I was able to have some flexibility on the clients I chose and how to move forward. So it's very important for me to do something 100%, and I wanted to be sure I had the time. So having always been involved in advocacy and trying to be a champion for those who wanted my voice, I thought this was the ideal. I'm very community oriented. I like to be involved. I like to figure out how I can help and give back. I've been fortunate in my career, so I always try to support my fellow men, and I try to go out and speak for those and help them with solutions. So looking at my time frame and being involved here in Vermont now, this was the ideal time. So I felt, okay, it's a citizens legislature. They like you to have other careers and come forward. So timing-wise, this was perfect for me.
Wonderful. And what has that first year been like for you?
This has been an eye-opener for me. Coming from, as I said, a background where I've been an advocate for many, many, many years, a business person for many years, involved in campaigning for candidates across the aisle, just worthy candidates, and doing everything I can, being appointed to councils, being a justice of the peace. This first year said to me, the structure of Vermont's legislature is unique. I believe that what I have found is true commitment from everyone up there across the aisle. They really believe that they are going to help the people of Vermont, and no matter how they go about it, that's their driving force. To me, that's very important. I found leadership in the House. The Speaker, Mitzi Johnson, and the Majority Leader, Jill Klinsky, and across the other aisle, Don Turner, and Appropriations Committee, Kitty Toll, and Peter Fagan, all drive this round to remember your constituents, which was very important. So it's not a leadership style that says you have to do what we say. They're more open to remember why you were elected and then bring that up. So it's, while of course there's always going to be, party positions, they're more flexible in discussing things with you and answering questions than I anticipated. So I thought that was very good.
Yeah, it's very important. And what are some issues this year that bipartisanship has really shown in the legislature?
Okay, so there were a few. We've had, Vermont right now is in a struggling state. We've gotten there over the years, and now we have to pay attention to not raising taxes. And some positions, of course, might be more across the United States. You want to not lose say things that you fight for in your party, but in Vermont specific, because we're small, we have to pay attention to not raising taxes and affordability, and how do we get people out of the benefits cliff, how do we develop businesses. So positions and ways to go about that, of course, are always going to be opposite on the different parties. So they crossed. However, compromises came up, and when there are compromises, not everybody wins, but overall, there's a winner. And then you can take it from there and advance forward. I think that when you do come up with a compromise, because I like mediation, when you do come up with a compromise, everybody really is a winner. They might not get 100% what they want, but they're closer. And the next time they figured out how to work together. I think that's important.
Absolutely. And for you personally, what have been some of the top issues that have been dealt with this year?
The ethics bill that came out, I thought that was crucial.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great step. Transparency in government for me is very important. Being connected with my constituents, very important. So the ethics bill, I thought, was a brave step for Vermont, being one of the few states that didn't have one. While it probably will have a bit more amendments that will come forward, sure, but I think the fact that there's disclosure now on who the people are, what they do. I like to see people who are on boards of not-for-profits disclose that. They need to be transparent because, of course, you come into the legislature and you want to help. So I think it's important that conflicts of interest be addressed more. I'd like to see that addressed further in the ethics bill.
Wow, great.
So that was one. The other area, of course, for me, we have an issue on the Commerce and Economic Development Committee. The independent contractor issue is out there, and I'll be working actually over the summer on that, and we'll be discussing that when we come back, because we have the workers' comp issue, and we have the small business issue, and the federal explanation and definition of who's independent, who's an employee. So we have conflicting policy issues out there, and we need to work on that to help the people of Vermont. Of course, the upcoming opiate crisis is very important to me. And having worked with human trafficking victims and other victims, I'm well aware of the grooming process and the indoctrination process and how that crosses over. And I think that's something I'd like to focus on. But so also an anti-human trafficking bill with the young age of marriage incorporated into that in the state, correcting that.
Absolutely.
And I was fortunate to be appointed on one of the rural economic development bills to the Committee of Conference, which was a process I learned about. So apparently when there are bills that are out there and they just may not be making it, they put together a committee of conference where they bring in 3 senators and 3 House representatives to go in and negotiate and make it happen.
Wow.
Or not. So I was fortunate on that one. It was a rural economic development bill, and we did it. We got through, and I believe that it's going to benefit Vermont.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that transparency is so important to you, and I always see on Facebook and social media that you're sharing where you are or saying, constituents, come find me, come talk. Why is that so important for you?
For me, being approachable is what makes a good legislator. I think that if you feel that you can't approach me and I'm not out there telling you where I am and I'm really participating in your community, I'm eating in the community, I'm bringing revenue back here, I want to drive back here and participate in the events, and I want you to sit with me, I want you to speak to me, I can't take our issues back to Montpelier. When I'm up in Montpelier, you're distanced, and it's easy to lose connection with your constituents, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be drawn into top-down style issues only. Of course, you pay attention, and we represent everybody in Vermont, but my constituents need to speak with me. So I go out there and I have business meetings. I email them, and if I'm out there, I want you to sit with me and tell me what's important to you, so that I can analyze it, discuss it, call you back, and we can figure it out.
And have you had a good reception to that from constituents?
Actually, I did. At first, I think it was strange, and people were not used to it. Now, they're welcoming it. I think that people are showing up more. I'm in 5 towns, and I have to set up my meetings, around those towns, because half of my district is Rutland County and half of it's Bennington County. So I actually take 2 full weekends of my month back here, and I am there meeting with my constituents, and they show up and they speak to me, and I try my best to address their issues, and so far we've had success.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And one thing that I had read about your background is that you have a lot of experience, and you've mentioned this, in human trafficking issues. And you've even been the co-founder, been on the board of directors, and the executive director of a nonprofit organization working with human trafficking victims. And I kind of have a similar background as well. So I'd really love to hear what makes you interested in that issue.
So I started out with that issue when I was in college.
Me as well.
And then I think that's where we all touch it.
Yeah.
Kept going with it. And then I'm also a certified life coach. Mm-hmm. So the organization that I co-founded was designed specifically to provide pro bono attorneys to victims of human trafficking, and certified life coaches to act as expert witnesses for them, since they're fact witnesses, so that they would not be re-traumatized through the court system. And that was unique in that, human trafficking victims, once they begin to speak, they may have participated through the grooming process in other crimes. And I wanted them to be represented so that they would not be speaking with inappropriately without having proper representation, and be further trafficked and bullied through the legal system. So I thought that was very important. We also organized homes for them and programs out of the state where they were trafficked, where they could go back to school, or they could get back into the community and help them there. We made sure that they were not interviewed by the media without appropriate legal counsel. And we've helped over 3,000 victims, and in all areas of trafficking. And I have trained actually in Vermont and across the globe in the United States, the judges on human trafficking issues, and the re-traumatization through the legal process. I designed a matrix that can identify if somebody actually has been a victim of human trafficking or some other abusive crime. And it's been used by our organization to go in and provide judges with the details of the case, so that the judges can assist in not rehoming or re-traumatizing the victims and getting them the best place to be.
That's great.
So, but tell me a little about yours.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
So I founded an organization in college as well called the Feminine Alliance, and we worked with victims of human trafficking abroad in Iraq and in Kenya, with women's shelters, and pretty much just had them tell us, what do you need? And we got the material aid shipments to them based on that. It was a lot of things like sewing materials for women who wanted to start their own businesses, even pads and tampons, things that you totally underestimate. Iron supplements. Anemia is a really pervasive problem. So it was more helping women who had escaped from that lifestyle, but it's an issue that is so pervasive, and it's easy to see, or easy to look at it and say, it only happens abroad, it does not happen here. And I'd love to hear from you, how much does it happen here, and who are these victims in the U.S.?
It happens here.
Yeah.
It's not only across the borders.
Absolutely.
We have victims here in Vermont. They cross the border, whether it be from Jersey or New York or even California when you come in from Canada and back to those states. And people are here that, remember Vermont closes down in the winter.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to find, say, homes that are abandoned for a while that could be used for grooming processes, parks. We're also more of a latchkey state, back to the old-fashioned kids go home, siblings raise their sisters and brothers. So we need to use caution. It is here.
Yeah.
Human trafficking is a difficult situation to identify. It's not prostitution.
No.
And I think education is important. People in the school system, they need to understand what's going on. But yes, we are here in Vermont as well. And I believe that hotlines need to be set up. It's not just awareness. We need solutions and we need action. And there are survivor-based organizations, but we also need professional-based organizations.
Absolutely.
So I think that people should pay attention to Vermont, that there's more trafficking going on, whether it be labor trafficking or whether it be sex trafficking. Eventually, labor trafficking usually turns into some form of sex trafficking to pay off the debts. So the grooming process will go further and deeper, and then there are byproducts, of course, which you don't even want to know about in human trafficking, from organ sales to baby sales, and so the black market. So it's organized crime. It is what it is, and we need to pay attention.
And from a policy perspective, how can Vermont begin to address this? I know you mentioned the marriage age in the state.
There are human trafficking bills that are already on there. There's a council. I was put on that council as well, training. But from a policy standpoint, I think we need to watch the age. We need to watch the distinction between smuggling and trafficking is important. The Mann Act needs to be, attention needs to be paid to that. I think that a human trafficking policy of getting funds from somewhere, which is what we should be working on, to incorporate into training judges. Law enforcement is great here in Vermont. They're probably the most astute. And I applaud them, and I have, trained with them and worked with them, and I think they pretty much understand it the most. But I'd like to see some policy written where we can get not just awareness, but know what not to do and what's a crime and how to get action done through the schools.
Absolutely. And a lot of people in this area are very kind of creative and start a lot of small businesses. We've got a very self-sustaining economy and a huge arts division kind of in our area. If someone has a passion for philanthropy or for serving others like you've exhibited, what would you say to them on how to get started in kind of a small rural area?
I think that small rural areas are the best place to get started. Get your experience, reach out, tap into the resources. Like, I'm a big research person. Go online, Google everything you can possibly see. Find out what your business competitors are, who they are, talk to professionals. I found that, at least for myself, professionals will give you a couple of pro bono hours and consulting hours to help you figure out what's good and where to reach out. If you're in the arts, this is what it's all about. I mean, Vermont is the artist's haven.
It is, yeah.
I used to be a performer and choreographer in Manhattan, and coming here, you just felt it, it like permeated through the mountains. But I do believe that if you have the drive to be a small business owner, do it. I do recommend that you understand financials. You're not going to be a financial expert, but speak to somebody. You need to understand when you're going to run out of money. You need to understand whether you're going to be cost-driven or revenue-driven, all of the things that artistic people do not want to touch. You need to touch it. So reach out to the professionals. I think that Vermont is so community-oriented, and I really think there's a bond between the people in Vermont, and I think they will speak to you.
Absolutely.
So I welcome you to reach out to me, reach out to your legislators. I think they will help you find the resources.
Absolutely, and especially in serving others. I know there's so many great organizations around here that do that. So
absolutely. I was like I'm so honored. I was just put on the board of the Bennington Habitat for Humanity. I look forward to that, and I'm going to be on the Northshire Grows board, so that's good. And these are good people. These are people who are just giving back, and that's the most important thing you can do. Be transparent, give back, and remember to be respectful.
Absolutely. And you serve kind of a wide-ranging district, like you said. You've got Dorset and Danby and Mount Tabor, but also Londonderry and Peru.
Not Londonderry,
Landgrove. I'm sorry,
no,
the two L's.
Yeah, I know.
So tell me a little bit about your hopes for these kind of varying districts and where you see them growing into the future.
So I think that, and as I said, I'm on the Economic Development Committee, Commerce. So I think that my towns are unique in that they are outside of, say, Manchester or Londonderry, where there's more business. We're more of the tourist restaurant, the pretty towns. The smaller businesses, the more quiet business, the quaint towns. Peru has the fair. Peru has their congregational church that unites everybody from all the towns. They have the small Hapgood store, and there's entertainment. They tap into the arts. So I think we are the social towns. Dorset has phenomenal restaurants, people meeting on the greens, entertainment, and we were just called the prettiest town.
Yes.
So that's fun. I get to say I represent the prettiest town. And as far as the Rutland side goes, well, before I leave, let's go back into Landgrove. Okay, that's like your fun attitude of vacation in peace, If you want to just be the hideaway, you go to Landgrove, and that's kind of fun also. But they're still easily, 15, 20 minutes to get to a restaurant elsewhere. And so then when you cross over to my Rutland side, I have Danby, which comes with a wealth of history. People who were hardworking in the quarries, and people who were writers, and people who were business people, and they developed small businesses. And I think they will probably be the most aggressive in promoting small business for the millennials. I think that they will be the ideal place for connecting Bennington and Rutland for education centers and for the millennials to have little hubs. They have the land, they don't have stringent zoning, and so they're more flexible in what goes there. I'd love to see some colleges unite with us here and set up hubs so that you can have satellite offices and apprenticeships going. And then, of course, Mount Tabor is part, and parcel to Danby. It's like the outskirts of Danby, so they would benefit from that as well. So because it all unites in a circle, I think we got it.
Yeah. Those are some really exciting goals. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Representative Sullivan.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you did on human trafficking.
Oh, thank you. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
This has been Vermont Voices, viewing national news through a local lens. For more information on the topics we've discussed today, keep an eye out for our column in the Manchester Journal. Have a great night.